here with our second semifinal. Winner playing Andrew Jessup in the finals. For the third straight invitational, we have Austin Collins here in a semifinal match. This is where his invitational runs have ended the last 2 times. Hoping to make it through.
Really like his odds here, though. You see he is number 2 on the leaderboard and very well poised to make the finals of this tournament. That's going to hold for sure.
Both players currently mulliganing to 6. We saw the match earlier today between Dan Jessup and Evan Whitehouse. A lot of mulliganing on Evan's side as well. Kind of part of the dredge deck.
Right. Yeah, the dredge just has a lot of hands that it mulligans, and honestly, it's a very small number of cards in its actual hand that it needs to start accruing value. It's playing out of the graveyard with Stinkweed Imp and other dredgers. You look at a lot of cards every turn, and honestly, going down on cards means that things like Prized Amalgam and Narcomoeba aren't stranded in your hand.
Evan on the play here. Both pairs survey their 6s.
Ironworks a little bit worse at mulliganing, but it is a deck that has a ton of redraws as long as you're making your land drops and accelerating towards 4 mana to cast Ironworks. Your Ancient Stirrings really tie things together, and you have plenty of redraws with things like Ichor Wellspring and other cards.
On Ironworks, you can expect them, Austin, without any interaction, to have a turn 4 combo. It's possible that he can turn 3, but on the play here, I think Evan should accept nothing less than a turn 4.
Right.
And here we go. Semifinals underway, starting with Shriekhorn on Evan Whitehouse's side.
This match is just lousy with unplayable 1-mana artifacts that finally came together in full 60-card decks.
Terrarian, Shriekhorn.
Just cards you would open in booster draft and just be like,
pass.
This one's coming back around.
Yeah. Chromatic Star is the find for Austin off that Ancient Stirrings. And we'll see what Evan's working with here. Shriekhorn into Bloodghast and Narcomoeba. Gets a Narcomoeba into play. Now, Ryan, the one thing I do like in this matchup is that Evan has a green light on cards like Cathartic Reunion here.
That's true. That's just going to resolve when you cast it. No concern about Spell Pierce or what have you.
And it's going to take a natural draw. We've seen him get stuck on lands a fair amount. Now, he naturally drew land number 2, and that's especially good with that Bloodghast.
Yeah.
Taps here, trying to find maybe a Prized Amalgam.
Yeah, that would be nice to pair with the Bloodghast. He wants to get as much power on the board as quickly as possible. Can't lean on anything like Dark Blast or Conflagrate buying him time in a matchup like this.
Here is Faithless Looting. Going to dredge Life from the Loam for 3. We'll get a Shriekhorn, a Creeping Chill, and a Mountain into the graveyard. 3 damage, Austin to 17. He'll dredge Dark Blast into Faithless Looting, Prized Amalgam, and Bloodghast.
Okay.
Big reward for holding back that land drop.
Yeah, these are good hits. He's going to get a decent amount of pressure on the battlefield. It's not really enough for a turn 3 win just yet, but he has a start.
But he's on the play. You know, Austin did mulligan to 6. I think this is going to be good enough for a turn 4. That gives him a chance to steal this game.
Yeah, definitely. When there's a Conflagrate too, that's good for a couple points.
Yeah, land here, 2 Bloodghasts into play, a delayed Prized Amalgam trigger. So next turn, it looks like we're going to be swinging for 8. So 8 this turn, 8 on turn 3, 8 on turn 4. All he has to do is find 1 more damage.
Well, he's already got the Conflagrate. 8/8 in the Conflagrate, that'll do it.
There's the Prized Amalgam, and he passes. So Austin has 16, 8 damage in play. Can he get 8 more? Can he make it a turn 3?
Next turn is going to be tough. He's down a bit on cards in hand. He's mulligan. He's resolved to Faithless Looting.
He'd need maybe double. He'd have to have something pretty good if he can hit over 2 Creeping Chills. There's a chance.
Right. The odds are very unlikely. He's just dredging 3 with Dark Blast, but there's a shot at it.
Ichor Wellspring draws a card for Austin. On Austin's side, though, he's going to need a turn 3. With no Mox Opal, no Mind Stone, it's actually very difficult for him to turn 3 on the Ironworks side.
And the lands are not Darksteel Citadel either, and that counts against him.
Now, but here's the Opal. He goes Engineer Explosives on 0, Opal, Chromatic Star. It does mean that if Austin has Kart Clan Ironworks and a land, he may be able to get the turn 3.
Yeah, he has some materials to at least start spinning his tires and hoping to find it. And a range of mana costs as well, Mox Opal being really important if you get a Scrap Trawler online.
Yeah, he has the ramp up to 4. So now the question is, can Evan deal 16 here? We know he's got 8.
16's a lot. He's got a Shriekhorn and a Dark Blast to look for it.
So 3 cards in hand. So that Conflagrate looks to be good for 4. If he can mill over, so we're looking for Creeping Chills. I don't think Bloodghast's play. Let's find out. Upkeep, Shriekhorn, over into Wooded Foothills, Blood Crypt. That's not going to do it.
Nope. Still gets to dredge.
Yeah, there's a chance if he... I don't see he could try to naturally draw for Cathartic Reunion. Dredges over Arid Mesa, Life from the Loam, and Bloodstained Mire. So not too many damage sources here.
No. And the odds of finding something that's better than dredging on a natural draw are so low.
Yeah, it does feel like there aren't many ways, you know, at this point, he has a turn 4 win pretty locked up. There aren't too many ways to get to turn 3. You see he puts Austin to 8 and casts Loam. But outside of basically, you know, he's going to wait and see if he gets turn 4. Is there much more he can do?
No. He really just needed to get lucky if he was going to win on this turn. Has things pretty well locked up for next turn. It's just, we'll see if Austin has the Ironworks, and that's just step 1. Austin himself will need to get lucky to actually close on the following turn, even if he's already drawn Krark-Clan Ironworks.
Yeah, he needs land, Ironworks, and even then it's not locked up. We'll go over to Austin Collins. Darksteel Citadel was the draw. And starts with Chromatic Star. Looks like he doesn't have the Ironworks just yet. Draws, finds Mox Opal. There's some mana. He's got a Scrap Trawler, it looks like, in hand.
That doesn't really do it here.
And he picks up the cards. No Ironworks. And Evan Whitehouse takes game 1.
Right. Yeah, that is a good win for Evan. He's on the board.
Exactly what he needs to be doing. So on the play there, Evan presents a turn 4. Austin is not able to break serve with a turn 3. Austin will have a pretty easy time, though, with this second game.
Yeah, being on the play changes that a lot. Whitehouse is further away from winning, and Collins gets another turn to spin the tires a little bit there.
So if Austin has a turn 3 on the play, that's going to be it. Even a turn 4 on the play, it's pretty hard for Evan to break that.
I mean, turn 3 on the play, forget about it. That's just going to win in a matchup like this, and turn 4 is still very, very likely to convert.
Yeah, Evan would have to have a 3. Does he have ways to slow down? Let's say if Austin has a turn 4. Can he slow it down at all? Can he maybe push that 4 back to a 5?
Can Whitehouse slow him down?
Yeah.
Not realistically. The Creeping Chill really doesn't come into play in that regard in a matchup like this. The Ironworks deck just goes infinite, so the life gain doesn't matter there. You can't. There's not really a situation where Scrap Trawler is meaningfully exposed to anything. You don't have any artifact destruction in the main deck for Ironworks.
Yeah, at least in these pre-board games, we'd be looking at a pair of Dark Blasts, but he only has 1 in the main. Conflates a sorcery. I don't think he can stop a turn 4 in any way. He can disrupt it at all.
No, he really just has to put the pedal to the floor. It's about all he's got. It did work for him one time.
Right, on the play, Austin mulliganed to 6, and Evan was able to make his own turn 4, and that will work sometimes.
Yes. And the way this plays out, if we go to a 5-game set, Whitehouse does have to play 2 more times.
Right, yeah, as the higher seed, he does get the privilege of going first 3 times here. Austin does have to win once on the draw.
Yep.
And it's going to get interesting as we're in sideboards, but really, you'd think... I don't want to say Austin needs to win this game. His deck's enough ahead that even if he loses this, I think he can just sweep from down 0-2.
Right. He does get a little bit of help in his sideboard, too. Not a lot, but that 1-0 Tormod's Crypt. It's pretty free for him.
Great, yeah.
It's pretty free for him to have it, too. Like, he plays Engineered Explosives for 0 sometimes.
Right, we saw that just to turn on Mox Opal that game.
Yeah, just to turn on Mox Opal, like just some random artifact for your Ironworks, part of your Scrap Trawler loop.
He has a Fire Spout that could play. There are things he can do.
Yeah.
Both players going to present here for the second game. First check is going to be the speed on Austin's hand. Last game, on 6, he had a hand that produced 4 mana on turn 3. He had an Ancient Stirrings. You're not really going to throw that one back. You can't always have Krark-Clan Ironworks in your opener.
Right.
Stirrings didn't find Ironworks. He went through a couple baubles and missed.
Yeah, Stirrings is slightly worse than Demonic Tutor. Slightly.
In this deck, Stirrings is messed up.
Yes.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it hits basically every card.
Yeah, it's just the range of things we've seen printed over the years.
Yeah.
Obviously, it finds the namesake card, Quark-Clan Ironworks, any of your lands. The floor on it is relatively high. Things like Ichor Wellspring, even Chromatic Star. But you get a range of interactive elements as well. Being able to find engineered explosives, and the fact that this deck just takes advantage of that as part of its scrap chowder loops is also a pretty huge deal.
Yeah. When first printed, it was kind of saying it was find a land or find a 10 drop, when it played in its first format.
It was Ulamog's Crusher or a basic land in your draft deck.
Right. Austin keeping on 6. Evan on 7. And here we go. Starts just on Darksteel Citadel for Austin Collins. Looks like a pair of more lands in his hand. Does have Chromatic Sphere, Mox Opal, Forest, Grove of the Burnwillows. Not sure this is a great hand for Austin.
No, not a lot to like to there.
Though the Scry was on top. That's pretty encouraging.
Well, yes and no. There's a lot of stuff that you just keep on top. Would you bottom an Ichor Wellspring here?
A Wellspring? Probably not.
Yeah.
If I didn't have anything else to do on my turn 2, you're right. It's free not to.
Right.
Evan, starting on Faithless Looting. Could have a pretty good go. Draw of 2. Draws into Shriekhorn and a land. We'll see if we can get some dredgers into the yard. Looks like Stimpweed Imp going to leave. And Bloodghast. Great start for Whitehouse.
Yeah, his deck is so far doing the things it needs to do. You need some good dredges, though.
And kept on top, Ryan, was Ichor Wellspring.
Exactly, yeah. Ooh, and he
was a Mind Stone.
This is a nice turn, actually.
Cast Mind Stone, Ichor Wellspring, draws another Wellspring, and he will pass. This is the kind of hand that against a control deck, these double Wellspring, Mind Stone, Opal hands is incredible. In this matchup, it's still a liability.
Yeah, it's a lot of artifacts on the battlefield. So
right.
You have that going for you. So it makes it more likely that your Ironworks will go off as soon as it shows up.
Dredge from Evan finds a Creeping Chill and 2 more Dredgers. Austin to 17.
That's fine. He really needs to get some creatures online, though. He has the 1 Bloodghast, but he's going to need some prized amalgams.
Here is Shriekhorn from Whitehouse. Immediately mills himself for 2 into Cathartic Reunion and Stomping Ground. Was hoping to hit maybe another Bloodghast or a prized amalgam before he made this land drop. He did not. And so, shocks for Stomping Ground. Bloodghast comes back.
Okay. Hopefully, for Whitehouse's sake, there's a Faithless Looting to follow up here with that shock.
That wouldn't be bad. It is close. It's another Shriekhorn.
That's acceptable.
Yeah. Right now, his board has been pretty medium, but he's got a lot going on for next turn. He has another Dredge coming up, 3 more Shriekhorn activations.
Right. He's building up a lot of looks, though. Collins already has the requisite mana for an Ironworks. We'll see if he needs to redraw into it, though.
But I don't think he has the Ironworks. He plays a second Mind Stone here, and that's going to make a second Ichor Wellspring. But outside of that, his hand is just lands. He hasn't found the combo yet, and draws into Yavimaya Coast. It is land, but wait, Ancient Stirrings. And there it is.
Couple of them.
And he'll take Ironworks. So, Evan, you are on notice.
Right.
Next turn, things are going to happen.
Yep. Immediately gets 2 free redraws off of the Wellsprings, has some Mind Stones to redraw.
It's possible to miss from here.
It is.
But I wouldn't count on it happening.
Right. Also, Whitehouse still needs to threaten lethal over the course of 2 turns for Collins to really care about missing.
Yeah, well, it is interesting because of the way this hand misses, where it misses where he draws cards and Austin doesn't draw things that matter. If Austin misses the combo this turn, which is kind of low probability, but if it happens, it'll be the type of miss where Austin's won't really get to recover again on the following turn.
Right. Well, the thing about that is Whitehouse first, because of that, has to tell Collins, you have to go now. He has to make this turn so threatening because there is that probability that Collins can miss here. And you don't top 8 3 invitationals in a row by not knowing when to pick your spot.
Right. A lot of mill here for Evan and a Dredge. So some more material in the yard. We have some dredgers, 2 more bloodghasts, a conflagrate. These are good tools for the following turn. If there is a following turn, which I'm not sure there is.
Right.
Fetch land from Evan gets back 2 more bloodghasts. They do not have haste. Yet.
They're a little ways off here.
See where Evan is at. Crack is a fetch land here.
So that's the third mana source. You can flashback Faithless Looting. I assume that's where he's going. Golgari Thug and some other dredgers. Though 17's a rough number.
Yeah, I mean, even if he gets a great Faithless Looting, I don't know if the great turns there win the game here.
Right.
They tie it up for turn 4 again.
Yeah, even exactly the other 3 creeping chills puts Austin at 8, and you'd only have an attack for your 3 bloodghasts, and
we're close.
A little bit shy.
Mills into Prized Amalgam. Land, Dredger, Cathartic Reunion. So really Amalgam's the only thing that's added. And it didn't see any of those creatures come back. So now we'll do Golgari Thug, 4 more. Another Cathartic Reunion, another Prized Amalgam, a Bloodghast, and a Mountain. The Amalgams are not going to come back this turn.
And that is a real problem for Whitehouse.
Yeah, he's not even threatening lethal on the following.
Right.
So at that point, if it's going to take him 3 attacks, what he's got to hope for is that Austin makes the Ironworks, draws some cards, and just if he has a fistful of lands, then there's a chance.
Right. That is the out that he's looking at here.
If at any point in there Austin finds a Scrap Trawler, the Sigh, even just more baubles into those things, it's going to be a tough road for Whitehouse.
Yeah, so some quick math here. That Bloodghast was the only attack. Collins is at 15. You have 3 Bloodghasts in Narcomoeba. None of those Amalgams are coming back, so it's just 7 damage on the following turn. He has a 3-card hand, but he can dredge Life from the Loam, and that can get him up. Plus 3 cards, make a land drop, and then you can conflagrate, but that's not for enough.
Here we go. Austin tapping here, being sure to leave both Mind Stones untapped in case he needs redraws. Taps the other 4 land and starts the engine running. Ichor Wellspring sacrificed. He draws a card, makes 2 mana, draws into Ancient Stirrings. That's a pretty nice one. Another Wellspring brings him up to 4. Draws Engineered Explosives. He has not made a land drop yet, but he'll make Ichor Wellspring again first.
If he can find a Scrap Trawler with either draw off the Wellspring or the Stirrings, he should be in good shape.
Right, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Look for that Scrap Trawler as Yavimaya Coast makes Ancient Stirrings. We see Chromatic Sphere, and there is Scrap Trawler in the top 5.
It's not quite Demonic Tutor.
Yeah, you did mention the card he'd like to have, and now he has it. It's probably the card he would have Demonic Tutored for.
Demonic Tutor costs 2 mana, that's the difference.
Dawson takes Scrap Trawler, and here we go. Sacks Mox Opal up to 4 colorless, makes Scrap Trawler down to 1. And there are a ton of redraws here.
Yes.
Down to 0 mana. Sacrifices, let's hold up. Down to 3 mana. Sacrifice Wellspring, drawing a card, getting back Mox Opal. At this point, he's pretty well set when it comes to mana. He's not going to run out of that. Will he run out of cards? Probably not. We'll keep going.
It is difficult, but
it's possible.
If he can have a blank set of the next 4 cards.
Right. Draws off Mind Stone, gets back Mox Opal. He's hoping to find a 1-mana artifact. Oh, there it is. So that these chains have an intermediate step. Mox Opal continuing just to... The fact that it's a Mox Opal at the end of these chains means mana is not really a concern.
Yeah, very easy to keep casting these Wellsprings, Chromatic Star.
Brings back Mox Opal, draws Mind Stone. Mind Stone, a good 2-mana cantrip. It's mana inefficient, but Austin has so much extra that that's just not going to be the problem.
Yeah, the combination of everything here means he has abundance of mana. It was just 8 floating there.
I was going to keep doing the same thing as before, but with Psy, Master Thopterist in play, so now each of these spells makes a million mana.
Right, mana even less of a problem now, and you also get to use the Psy. These Thopter tokens will make it so Whitehouse has even tougher time crossing the finish line.
Well, every Mox Opal you play, it makes a Thopter and taps for blue. So there's your blue and 1, and the Thopter's one of your 2 artifacts. So we're pretty close to drawing any number of cards. So Austin continues to work through. We'll see how much more of this Evan really wants to put up with.
He's got nowhere to be. He's seen an untimed round in a snowstorm.
Yeah. More Thopter tokens continue to hit the battlefield, and more mana is produced. I feel like it must be a sad life if you're Psy Master Thopterist, because you're sitting over here making all these inventions, right? You're like making these Thopters, and as soon as you do, people just take the thing you made and they say thank you, and then they chuck it into a Krark Clan Ironworks.
Yeah, he's from a more civilized place than Mirrodin.
Yeah. All these great inventions, and they just melt them back down again, and then you make more Thopters, and then they melt your Thopters down. It's a, you know.
Well, you know, his complaint there is rooted in hubris. He assumes that he can do better than the Forge.
Okay. Oh, it's his
arrogant.
It's his maddening work.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. Austin Collins evens things up 1-1, both taking game 2 on the play.
Yeah, so now we're going to move on to the sideboards, both the pre-board games out of the way. And Whitehouse is going to get another crack at being on the play. That's how he was able to win one of these games so far.
Right. So the first 2 games we talked about the racing aspect of this matchup, how Evan really would like a turn 4 when he's on the play and can hope to, really can't do worse because he doesn't have any interaction. He had no way to disrupt, push any of Austin's turn 4s back. Now, I'm not saying he has a lot of disruption, as he doesn't, but he has some ways to slow down Austin.
Yeah, he has my favorite form of disruption. So the sideboard is 4 Nature's Claim, 3 Lightning Axe, 2 Damping Sphere, 2 Ancient Grudge, 1 Assassin's Trophy, 1 Conflagrate, 1 Dark Blast, and the perfect number of Leyline of the Void, exactly 1 copy.
Right, you hate having 2 of them in play, because why would you need that? So you have 1.
Yes, love it.
All right, so with Leyline of the Void in play, that certainly will disrupt Austin. If he doesn't remove it, then a lot of his cards don't work. He can still win with things like Psy and Spine of Ishsa, but with a Leyline of the Void in play, how many turns does that buy, Evan? 1, 2?
If he has the turn 0 Leyline, that buys him a bit of time. Austin's answers to that are generally pretty inefficient. He has Nature's Claims in his sideboard, but I'd be surprised if more than 1, maybe 2 copies of that come in. It takes a little bit of time to get Engineered Explosives on 4.
Right.
A little bit of time to get up to Spine of Ishsa mana. So that is a pretty significant card in the sideboard, actually. It's less so in a deck like Jund, where your clock is more anemic, but the Dredge deck is actually quite explosive when it starts going. Yeah,
and it's actually hard for Austin to EE on 4 because of those cards Terrarian and Chromatic Star. He's actually has to throw, like, they can make the mana.
They don't redraw.
They don't
go to the graveyard.
Right. So maybe when there's land in play, Austin, if he boards all the way up to 3 Psys, then he says, that's fine. I will make many Thopters. If Austin has enough Thopter loops going, it doesn't win immediately if he's making 3 or 4 Thopters a turn, but it's actually hard for Dredge to win when Austin is doing that. So in a way, it works.
Yeah. The other significant card in Whitehouse's sideboard that's pretty hateful in the matchup, 2 Damping Sphere.
All right.
That can slow Collins down, though it's quite a bit easier to answer. Engineered Explosives, much more efficient at dealing with that. Really easy to use your mana there. And because the other hate card there is an artifact, there's a bigger argument for Collins to go heavier on the Nature's Claim in the sideboard. Yeah,
so moving over to Austin's sideboard, these 4 Nature's Claims are his general defense against hate cards. We see the 3 of them in Evan's sideboard. Okay, Austin will board in some number of Nature's Claim. Other things he can do, he has Galvanic Blast and Lightning Bolt. Negate, he has Psy Master Thopterists numbers 2 and 3. Swan Song, and then cards which I think might be pretty interesting here is Fire Spout and Tormod's Crypt.
Yeah, big fan of the Tormod's Crypt. If not now, when?
I'm
pretty sure Dredge is kind of exactly what you're looking for with that card. It can buy you a good amount of time. Dredge is really good at resetting his graveyard if you only hate it once, but then Austin can do things like Scrap Trawler to easily buy back the Tormod's Crypt, and just having 1 copy actually does a ton of work over the course of a game. The Fire Spout can buy you a considerable amount of time as well. The matchup's largely a race. It's possible, though, that once you're already reaching for the Crypt, the Nature's Claims, that's just too much sideboarding for the matchup, though.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, so the worry about too much sideboard out of a combo deck is that it would slow you down. And certainly could with Austin. At the same time, he's already the faster deck. And if he's slowing down himself by 1 turn to slow down his opponent by 2, the math still checks out.
I mean, that's a fair trade, but these numbers are also just made up entirely.
Yeah. The question, right? They're the kind of numbers that you can't determine it as empirically as that. But the idea is, if I take I'm down 1 bauble, 1 chromatic sphere to make. If I have Tormod's Crypt instead of chromatic sphere, I cost myself some time. But how much time did I buy myself? Mm-hmm. Is that still okay?
Yeah, and for the Crypt, largely because it is an artifact, I think it's very easy to do that, especially because that scrap trawler interaction.
You keep crypting them?
Right.
Yeah.
The Fire Spout, though, I am more hesitant to bring that in.
Yeah, I agree on that. It's not really necessary, especially because you're not trying to control and answer his creatures. I would look towards Fire Spout more against something like humans.
Right.
Okay, there's a Meddling Mage on Krark Clan Ironworks. Maybe I need to do something about that.
I should probably destroy that creature, yes.
Right. As opposed to my opponent has 2 prized amalgams.
Mm-hmm. That will come back.
Yeah, it's not even right. It's not even Anger of the Gods.
Yeah, and it makes sense that it's Fire Spout. The deck has some difficulty producing double red, things like that. Also, amusingly, sometimes you would use Fire Spout just for ground creatures. Probably rarely just for flyers, but sure it comes up.
Well, in this wintry times like these, it's a great time to check out the Star City Games holiday sale. It's happening through the entire month of December. We have sales on, these are our lowest prices of the year, and new items being added to the list every single day over the season. It's been going on and goes on through the beginning of January at starcitygames.com/holiday sale. I mean, you could pick up this Demonic Tutor. You probably would rather pick up Ancient Stirrings.
The Black Ancient Stirrings. That's a great card.
See, Black doesn't get to tutor as well as Green, so that's why they added the colorless.
Well, yeah, you're always calling Primeval Titan the best tutor in Modern.
It just is.
Green is just really good at that kind of effect.
That's why I play both as a 4-of in my deck. I play Demonic Tutor, and then I tutor for the best tutor in Modern.
It's a nice lineup.
Right? It's the only Ancient Stirrings Primeval Titan deck. We broke it.
It's kind of funny. It's really exactly Modern where the tutors are so good. I suppose that in Legacy, Crop Rotation is still a fairly busted card.
Gamble exists.
Well, I was talking about green tutors.
Oh, green tutors?
Worldly Tutor never really made it.
No. Sylvan Scrying.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
That's a green tutor. That gets back to Modern. Yeah, Worldly Tutor wasn't much. I mean, actually, in Modern, your best tutor's right. How about we go Chord of Calling? That's a reasonable tutor.
Mm-hmm.
Eldritch Evolution. Collected Company's kind of a tutor. If Ancient Stirrings is Collected Company a tutor?
No, the Collected Company is dramatically more restricting than Ancient Stirrings is.
Knight of the Reliquary is a tutor.
That's true. That one does not show up too much. I think it had its best heyday in Legacy. Being able to find a wasteland is a big deal.
Well, it was part of this trend where creatures just kept getting better every set. And so when Knight was printed, it was the best creature. It was, in the running for best creature in Magic. But the way things are going, you don't get to hold on to that belt for very long.
Before Knight of the Reliquary, Terravor was a card that people were very happy to register in the Legacy format.
Yeah. People talked about Psychotog being the best creature in Magic. That's
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Terravor was in Legacy decks.
Yeah, and then they kind of shared the stage with Knight for a bit. Then it was just Knight. Stop messing around with that 3-mana creature that only attacks and blocks. There it is. Power and toughness equal to the number of lands in all graveyards.
It has the Knight of the Reliquary ability, and it has Trample. Wow.
It checks your opponent's graveyard, too. So you wasteland them, and it gets +2/+2.
The issue with Knight is that it's just not big enough, see?
Yeah.
So, add a couple more power onto it, and that card would be everywhere.
Terravor was a sweet card. It was part of a cycle where they had some other good ones. Magnivore was really strong, and then had some really bad ones.
The thing is that Terravor starts at 0. Knight starts at 2.
Oh, yeah. What an
right?
upgrade.
So
What an upgrade.
Terravore does get better on rate once your opponent has 3 lands in their yard. Then we're making some profit.
I think you'd see a few fetch lands in the Legacy format.
All right, Evan keeping on 6 on the play. And we're here for game number 3. Sideboard's in, no ley line. So we're playing.
Missed it.
Missed it. It's the one of. And strategy will start off on Stomping Ground. Question is, how fast is Austin's hand going to be? How fast will Evan's be?
Yeah, is this Shriekhorn or Faithless Looting?
Do you like one more than the other here?
On turn 1, I prefer Shriekhorn. I like to cast Looting when there's already a Dredger in the graveyard.
So the top 2 cards of Evan's deck were both Narcomoeba, so I kind of wish it was Shriekhorn.
Yeah, that'd be better.
And he draws 2 Narcomoebas, discards Stinkweed Imp, prized Amalgam. It was not a great Faithless Looting for Evan.
I mean, there's a Dredger.
There is a Dredger.
Not having the Narcomoebas in your deck is a cost, but...
Yeah. You'd like to have another Faithless Looting. And at turn 1, Demonic Tutor from Austin Collins. What is he going to tutor for?
Not sure if a second
Land.
land's available yet.
You know, he'll take Scrap Trawler.
All right.
I was going to say, I've used Demonic Tutor as land grant more times than I would like to admit.
I do that a lot in Cube Draft. It's the worst when you have to Vampiric Tutor for a land. That's a serious cost.
Nice dredge here from Evan. We go Creeping Chill, Bloodghast, Narcomoeba as the first 3 off Stinkweed Imp. So drains Austin to 17. Gets a Narcomoeba into play. And possibility for Bloodghast here if he has the second land.
Yeah, that's a nice swing. The Amoeba at least gets that Amalgam back, and looking at a little bit more on top of that.
Looks like fetch land in Evan's hand. He'd like another looting or something. His hand is not particularly live right now. It is a 3rd land, a Stinkweed Imp, and 2 Narcomoebas, but he will bring Bloodghast back into play. On turn 3, he may get to Faithless Looting here. Can that set him up into a turn 4 win?
There's this other issue where he can flashback the Faithless Looting, but there's still no Dredgers in the graveyard. He already dredged the Imp.
Right. Yeah, he's taking a natural draw next turn, isn't he?
Right.
Back to Austin we go. Now then the question is, did Austin's hand bust up in any way?
Getting a look. He's already got Ironworks. He's revealed Scrap Trawler. This is a lot of what he needs to go off.
Here's Ichor Wellspring. The one saving grace here, though, Ryan, is so Austin has all the pieces, but I don't think he has any accelerants.
Okay.
Right? He has Scrap Trawler, Karklan Ironworks, another Wellspring, 2 Terrarians, a star. This is all good stuff.
Yeah, no Opal, no Mind Stone.
Right.
And also neither of these lands are Darksteel Citadel, so you have less just free artifacts hanging out.
Right. Austin on turn 4 is going to win. That should be rolled up. Now the question is can Evan do it on turn 4 first?
Right. It's really tough for Evan to get there. He's not starting the turn with the dredge, so that means he gets not that many looks at Creeping Chills.
Yeah, I mean, based on just what's in his hand and graveyard right now, my thought is no. Mm-hmm. But he has some draws that can improve that.
Right.
And he'll take one.
Cathartic Reunion here. Ooh.
Okay, all right. See, he gets a Demonic Tutor as well. Here we go.
This one's closer to Ancestral Recall, but like times 5.
Red and green, best tutors, best card advantage. Here is Cathartic Reunion. This is exactly the card Evan needed. He discards. It looks like Stinkweed Imp, so the first dredge is going to be a 5. He gets an Amalgam, a Creeping Chill, and some lands. Is the dredging over? I think it is.
Ugh, yuck.
Takes 2 more draws. Draws Ancient Grudge, Life from the Loam. But maybe the Grudge can buy him a turn. And it's maybe.
That's true. And we'll see exactly how many artifacts Collins can deploy in the next turn, but you get Grudge and Flashback. Yeah. Collins isn't going to go off from here when you pass.
Yeah, land into play. An attack for 6 will put Austin to 8. That Creeping Chill did 3 more, so he doesn't have to find very much damage here. He is still short the final 2 as he passes.
Yeah, there's just quite a range of things that make that possible.
Chromatic Sphere the draw for Austin. So all the pieces in the world, but no way to go faster. This is a window.
I guess Whitehouse on no dredgers, but the Ancient Grudge is likely to buy him another turn. We'll see exactly how that plays out.
Yeah, Chromatic Sphere. Austin will pop it right away to draw a card. It does send him down a mana, but he gets Ancient Stirrings. Is that going to do anything for him? We'll find out. He'll cast.
Largely, I think Mox Opal is the biggest find.
Yeah, I mean, even then, because he's down 1 mana for starting the turn with Sphere, it's not...
I don't think he can do anything this turn.
Oh, just to make sure next turn?
It's better on the following turn.
That's certainly true. If he sees an Opal, it's one of the best cards he can get.
Mm-hmm. It looks like he will have another Stirrings this turn, so...
Yeah.
Gets a lot of looks to set up the next turn.
It's interesting. He has the option of another Stirrings, and I'm interested to see whether he decides it's best to get another Stirrings or actually just to start pumping artifacts onto the board at this point.
Yeah, just like cast his Chromatic Star over it.
Right, making sure that... Because one of the ways you actually make sure to play around Ancient Grudge when you play our Ironworks is just to
have a lot of artifacts to
have
sacrifice
mana.
to your Ironworks, yeah.
Yeah. You know, say, okay, in response, sack a bunch more things, play Scrap Trawler, keep doing my stuff.
Right.
He does take a second Scrap Trawler here off the Ancient Stirrings. And he's going to go the other way. He will cast that last Stirrings. No artifact in play, so actually if he finds Mox Opal here, it doesn't do much.
Yeah, on this turn. And it's also, you have to spend 4 mana next turn for the Ironworks, so it's a little bit tough to set up.
He just says go. He found Darksteel Citadel there. That'll almost certainly be his land drop on the following turn if he gets one.
Yeah, there were things that could have happened on that turn that really well set up to Ironworks and even fight through maybe even the Ancient Grudge, but what just was on display there, I believe if Whitehouse just commits to attacking, Ancient Grudging, leaving up that and the flashback, he should be able to close this on the next turn.
You want to grudge his Ichor Wellspring?
I don't want to do that. I mean, maybe.
It's not terrible.
Yeah.
As weird, like, it's -2 mana.
Yeah, Ironworks on the stack, grudge your Wellspring. That could be fine.
Right? If you Ironworks on the stack, grudge your Wellspring, it resolves. Okay. Then the moment he tries to cast something else, grudge your Ironworks. Austin will get 2 mana. He'll get 4 mana to work with. He can sack the Ironworks to itself. He can sack that Darksteel Citadel. But that's not a lot. Let's see if he gets a turn, though. The swing puts Austin to 2. And Evan had interesting choices. He could have flashed back Faithless Looting, trying to find a Bloodghast, but instead he opts just to leave up Grudge.
Right, and in this context, it makes a lot of sense to me. If Collins spent his turn making 2 or 3 artifacts on the table, it'd be scarier.
Well, Ryan, things got interesting. Austin drew Mox Opal this turn, and that's a fantastic draw on this board.
Right, he has Darksteel Citadel as his land, so
right.
It's already on. He can make a star or a sphere before he casts the Ironworks.
Right, so now even when the Ironworks is grudged, Austin will have tons of mana. He has those 2 Scrap Trawlers he's found off Ancient Stirrings. The Opal really was important here. It was +3 mana for this turn.
Right.
Without it, I felt like the Grudge was going to defend, and now I'm not so sure.
And Collins has to be suspicious here. Whitehouse just spent the turn not doing anything.
There's a Faithless Looting in the graveyard.
Right.
Right? He could have said looting, if I find a Bloodghast and discard it, you lose.
Presumably Ancient Grudge is on the brain.
Right? It certainly looks like one. And here's the Ironworks from Austin Collins.
Though, really, this is the most he can do. He probably identified that that's what he's playing around, but he just kind of has to shove into it.
Yeah, but at this point, even with that Grudge on the stack, Austin's going to have a ton of mana. You know, he'll have the ability without the Ironworks to cast a lot of Scrap Trawlers. That's not going to find it immediately, but there's a lot to like. So cast Scrap Trawler. With that on the stack, I think Evan's going to do something.
Yes. I would recommend destroying Clark Clan Ironworks.
Yes. Down to 1 colorless mana at the moment is Austin. We'll decide he'll have to figure out how much he wants to sacrifice. This is the turn. If Evan can survive this turn, he'll go up 2 games to 1.
So there's just 1 mana floating. I believe Collins does have a second copy of Ironworks in hand. And you want to cast that and keep going, I assume. So I would likely sacrifice the Wellspring and the Terrarian in response.
Yeah, I mean, if Austin can find another Ironworks here, it's going to be pretty good. So this is with Trawler on the stack. So keep in mind, that 3/2 is not in play just yet. Ancient Grudge is targeting Clark Clan Ironworks, and now Austin's going to start things up. Here's Terrarian. Sacrifice to up to 3 colorless, who Austin will draw, finds Inventor's Fair, but he's already made his land drop. Sacks Ironworks to itself. Decides to keep that Wellspring around.
I suppose the Ironworks gets him mana up to... He already had Ironworks in hand. He wasn't digging for cards. He just needed to generate mana there.
Yep.
So this gets him to the requisite space.
He has the second Ironworks.
Yep.
And there we go, down to 4. And you're right, his hand does appear to have another Ironworks in it. 0 mana floating. Now, Evan does have a second half of an Ancient Grudge, so we're still playing.
Yeah, I mean, the best you can do, I believe, is just fire off the Grudge at the Scrap Trawler.
But there's another Scrap Trawler in Austin's hand.
I mean, it's not a good situation. What are you going to grudge? I guess you can wait.
The Ironworks?
The Ironworks?
Yeah, as soon as you get priority, hit the Ironworks.
Okay.
If you hit the Trawler because he knows there's a second one, that to me feels like a line that never wins. I'm not saying Ironworks is better.
Yep. Yeah, he might be able to get it if he takes this Ironworks off the table.
Yeah, I think so. This shows some of the strength of the deck. The fact that there's Austin started this turn with Iker Wellspring, and its opponent had a full Ancient Grudge, and Austin might be able to combo through it. That's some good stuff. And Evan says, okay, your Scrap Trawler resolves. Remember, Austin can sacrifice cards without giving priority. Any trigger or spell cast is going to hand priority over. So a sacrifice of Iker Wellspring looks like it's on the table. And this should be where the second Grudge comes in. See what he's targeting. He targets Terrarion. Yeah, Iker Wellspring targeting Terrarion. And here comes that second half of Ancient Grudge at Krark Clan Ironworks.
Likely to see some responses from Collins here.
Yeah. He can sacrifice the Ironworks to get back the Iker Wellspring. We'll see how much more mana he wants to make. Doesn't actually have too many options. He's going to filter through the Chromatic Sphere. That will get him back a Mox Opal, making a blue mana. And drawing him a card.
Alright, blue mana looks like the hope for him as find Psy Master Thopterus here, make enough mana to make a couple Thopters, possibly
survive
buy
the turn.
him some time. He would still need to fade.
Conflagrate, Creeping Chill, and an army of attackers?
Right.
I think that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like Austin did have a Nature's Claim in hand. Something he might be able to use on his own cards to buy himself a turn.
Yeah, the old sacrifice a permanent, gain 4 life.
Yeah. All right, so Mox Opal comes back into his hand. That was the Chromatic Sphere trigger. So now we are back with Ancient Grudge on the stack. And above that, we have the Terrarion trying to make its way back into Austin's hand. So, now Krark Iris will sacrifice to itself. Austin goes up to 3 colorless. And there's going to be a Scrap Trawler trigger. It's going to target that Iker Wellspring. That's going to work. Wellspring's back in Austin's hand. Nothing left for Ancient Grudge to destroy. And Terrarion will come back into his hand. And he draws a card. That was off that Wellspring that was originally sacrificed when this whole chain reaction started.
Mm-hmm.
Down to 2 mana is Austin for Iker Wellspring. He draws again. He is running out of mana. He still has that Mox Opal. It's his 3rd artifact again. So that brings him up to 3. Doesn't have too much to do here, though. Terrarion will be the play. Down to just blue floating. Can he survive the turn?
He's just dead on board to the attackers. He's got to do more than this.
Well, hold on. Nature's Claim. He can block something with Scrap Trawler. He can claim one of his own cards.
Green mana, yeah.
It's a rough one, and he will pass. And Evan Whitehouse makes it through the turn. Ancient Grudge did the trick. Now he needs to get 2 damage across.
Right, still on no dredgers in the graveyard.
Bloodghast was the draw.
He has 1 black mana source in play.
He can Faithless Looting it into the yard and try to bring it back that way.
Yeah, if he finds a land, he can do that. Oh, there's Life from the Loam. There's your black mana source.
Okay. Life from Loam getting back 3 lands. And that's still not enough damage, Ryan. Here's Bloodghast, right? It's a swing.
Yeah, so you have
He's 1
5
short.
damage unblocked, yeah, so the Nature's Claim will get Austin up to 6.
Yeah.
You got to block with the Trawler, though.
If he had put the Bloodghast into play off Faithless Looting, I guess he still wouldn't have a shot at it. Maybe if he had found Conflagrate?
I mean, it's possible that he's just saying that you have the Nature's Claim, I don't beat you. If you try to Faithless Looting and you miss on the land, then you don't even get the additional Bloodghast.
That's a pretty big cost. So yeah, the block with Scrap Trawler. Before damage, Nature's Claim on the Ichor Wellspring. This would put Austin up to 6, and there's 5 unblocked damage coming through.
All right.
Draws a card, and he gets to Scrap Trawl back a Chromatic Sphere.
He does need a little bit of help from the top of the deck, though.
Right, because he's going to lose the Scrap Trawler, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has Buried Room, but not really the mana to ruin back and cast a Corkland Ironworks.
Yeah, if he can get an Ironworks into play, he still has the material to combo, but he has dropped to 1. Well, Scrap Trawler just died. Could have gotten back Corkland Ironworks, but he actually goes for Ichor Wellspring.
It's lesser converted mana costs.
I know it's lesser. You're absolutely right. It's not me. I'm thinking Mirror Retriever. Yeah, I was thinking, wait. Okay. A lot of ways to get right.
Scrap Crawler is already very good.
Another green card for Austin. Well, Ryan, if it is Demonic Tutor, I know what I'm Demonic Tutoring for here.
I have an idea of what he wants to find.
Terrarian, Ichor Wellspring, Chromatic Star, Scrap Trawler, Mox Opal.
I guess it's
not exactly Demonic Tutor, yeah.
I guess it's a little worse.
Only a little. If he has another turn, that Inventor's Fair in his hand, or that Buried Ruin in play could turn into the Corkland Ironworks, but I think he's all out of extra turns.
Yeah, having another turn from here is pretty difficult to imagine.
He's going to take Mox Opal, but the Opals aren't online anymore. He only has 2 artifacts in play.
Yeah, he burned through a lot of that stuff.
A question with the Judge. Looks like, sometimes Dredge actually just casts its cards, and that's confusing. There was a prized amalgam that entered the battlefield that I don't believe should be there. So Judge will take care of this situation. We will let you know the resolution on this. As far as changing the outcome, that's unlikely to have happened, so Judges are going to make sure that everything is going according to plan here.
Yeah, Amalgam traded with Trawler, as I recall. With Collins at 1, I don't see this being something that impacts the outcome of our game.
Yeah. And pending this call, we feel like Evan may get game 3 here. It is.
I'm not seeing how Collins pieces it together on this turn.
I mean, it's already been pretty close. He's gotten a lot of extra turns here. Especially that Nature's Claim turn. It felt like it was going to end there.
Mm-hmm. Well, another difference between this turn and the last is Whitehouse does have a Dredger in the graveyard now. He'll be able to dredge Life from the Loam instead of taking a natural draw step. That's more looks at Conflagrate, at Creeping Chill, even if Collins finds a way to stabilize the board, say if he already had Psy Master Thopterist. Yeah, that Ancient Grudge for Whitehouse, that was instrumental.
Yeah, I thought that turn was pretty interesting. The decision between trying to find 2 more damage and then trying to lay up for the next turn was very close.
It got scary for a second.
Right, when I drew that Opal, you're thinking, wait, this might not work.
Yeah, the land drop being the Citadel, being an artifact that turn, Opal into 1-mana artifact, into Ironworks.
Yeah. If one of Austin's earlier lands was Citadel, and we might have seen a completely different game, as Austin could have held back his land drop, made Buried Ruin, and I think that likely would have been enough.
Yeah, I think that things like that, game states where Collins is going to that turn with more artifacts on the battlefield, that's the sort of thing that would influence Whitehouse's play to be the go for broke line as opposed to the leave up Ancient Grudge line. Instead, you spend that turn just trying to get a Bloodghast and coming across for lethal there, rather than hoping your Ancient Grudge is good enough.
Right now we are going to go ahead and get a ruling on our current Game 3. And this match, though, has shaped up to be a lot closer than we had originally thought.
Yeah, Evan Whitehouse, he just won the first game of the match, just on the play. Got there before Collins had a chance to go off. Collins did fire back. They did tie up 1-1 in the pre-sideboard games. But Evan Whitehouse is definitely threatening to be closing in the third game here. That would put him up 2-1.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the Bloodghast was cast that turn from hand. The rare way they enter the battlefield. He loamed back the second Black Source and cast it rather than bringing it back with the land drop.
Yeah, a deck that is really full of lands that tap for exactly red and green.
So it looks like the judge has ruled a backup. Going back to Prize Magum is placed in the graveyard, as there was no way for it to enter the battlefield.
Again, not really seeing that influencing the outcome here. It's going to be a big check on Collins to be able to generate a Krark Clan Ironworks here, Psy Master Thopterus, in addition to some artifacts to make some blockers, and then trying to fade any of those lethal burn type spells.
So moved back. It was a minor fix was allowed. Evan receiving a warning for game rule violation and failure to retain game state, but it is his first warning here in the top 8. So play then proceeds for Game 3.
Mm-hmm.
And now, after that stirrings, you mentioned if it could hit Krark Clan Ironworks, we had a shot. Austin had one. It looks through the graveyard. Is there another way out? He needs to deal with all 3 of these attackers. Or maybe be able to, if he can cycle into a Nature's Claim, well, he goes to 5, which he needs to be at 6. And he also can't use that green mana.
Yeah, the Yavimaya is not doing any favors here.
So thanks to Darksteel Citadel, he can use that Mox Opal again. He makes a blue mana to start.
The Trarian is a mana neutral redraw.
Right.
Well, at least as it stands. It's not mana neutral if it draws Ironworks. You have less material.
Exactly. Seeding me something together. We have a Trawler. We have multiple chromatic spheres. Awesome. Trying to just puzzle this one out. What can he draw into? Not sure there's a way to draw into something to win, but can he draw to not lose? Maybe get a Psy, get a couple blockers in play. That could save him. We do have another question here.
Yeah, so I was kind of wondering about this. I think that what I saw was he used Ancient Stirrings and that Mox Opal on top of his graveyard is the card that he found. And it just kind of got cast on top of his graveyard instead of going to his hand in the confusion of the other judge ruling. That's a weird thing. I believe that card should be in his hand.
Yeah, I don't... He didn't Legend rule a Mox Opal, and one wasn't destroyed. I'm going to agree with that. And that's the discussion. Yeah, I think Austin's doing the math and said, something seems off here.
Yeah, what's going on?
Why is there a Mox Opal in my graveyard?
Right. Yeah, so...
So we will... Yeah, and then that can happen in a long judge call. Things like that can be misresolved.
Ancient Stirrings is not resolved by putting one card from the top 5 cards of your library into your graveyard and the other 4 on the bottom.
Just confirming with opponent, yeah, that happened. All right, well, they start this one. We're going to go ahead and come back to the booth here. Game number 3 of Evan Whitehouse versus Austin Collins. We had a series of judge calls here. Going to put the board state back together as best we can, and then we'll move from there.
This one at least might impact outcomes.
This one might impact, yeah, and I think there's a couple of different ways this ruling, may end up being ruled on depending on what was said from each player. So when we know that, we'll return to the game. We'll have the judges ruling. But either way, in this situation, Austin on the back foot, if he loses this one, he's going to need to take games 4 and 5.
On this turn, he needs to, within the top 1, maybe 2 cards of his deck, have a huge redraw.
Yeah.
I think at the top 1 could maybe be Sai with the mana available.
Okay.
In 2, it would have to be the mana to make a Krark Clan Ironworks, and I think that Sai at that point you exhaust too much mana to start going off at the second card.
All right, let's go back down to the table. Was confirmed that the Mox Opal was revealed and stated to be placed in his hand, and then it was placed in the wrong zone. So the judges put the Mox Opal into Austin's hand. No warnings were given.
All right, so +1 mana on his little puzzle this turn.
Right, so every redraw with these baubles costs him 1. So right now he has 5. Right, so he has 1 floating and 4 available. So with the first redraw costs 0 because it's Terrarian. Mm-hmm. And you see him spending his Mox Opals immediately as he doesn't want to get under Metalcraft count.
Yeah, that's a really punishing mistake to make, just stone raiding yourself, especially on a turn like this where you really choked on mana as a resource.
So the first free redraws off Terrarian. This could hit Sai or perhaps Krark Clan Ironworks. It hits a Mox Opal.
Yeah, +1 mana, so he's at 5. This would go to 6.
Yeah, if he has enough 1-mana cantrips, that does give him another redraw. Mm-hmm. So now he spends one of his 4 floating mana. This one's not free. It's going to be Chromatic Sphere. Maintains colors, turns a green mana into a green mana, and draws a card. Draws into Mere Retriever. But no way to sacrifice it yet. There's a world where this gets him to Krark Clan Ironworks, but I don't think we're there.
Yeah, that's a blank draw here. Not able to use it as a relevant blocker because he's at 1.
Right. Now, that Mox Opal he drew, Ryan, it said it was a redraw, but I do need to be a bit careful here as he casts Chromatic Sphere. That Metalcraft issue is relevant. And you see he makes Sphere, and he may have to make that next Opal now to make sure it get taps.
Yeah, he is not one to
Yeah, he's not going to miss that one. Cycles through Chromatic Sphere. Off Buried Rune, 4 mana draws. Can he hit Krark Clan Ironworks? He hits... looks like Nature's Claim. Well,
as he went over before, is being hit for 5 here. You can make Mere Retriever
Yeah.
as a blocker and then use Nature's Claim to gain the life.
well, he'd need to find a green mana somehow.
He's got some floating. I mean, he would have to use the Nature's Claim now. Do something
Yeah.
like tag his Mox Opal.
Right, so because if he blocks and gains 4, that's enough to survive. But if he has to at main phase, he goes to 5. Evan's got 5 power.
Yeah, so you just claim something that's not the Retriever.
Oh, okay. Yep,
Yeah,
we just
if he has the
claim.
mana
Okay, we
floating
claim the
now,
Mox Opal,
Claim
make
the
Mirror
Mox,
Retriever.
or if you have another 1-mana artifact to cast.
Don't mind that. So here is Scrap Trawler with green floating. And Austin's going to look for a different line. How about Mere Retriever with 2 green floating? Nature's Claim, targeting Darksteel Citadel. I like that. You still gain the 4 life, it just doesn't destroy the Citadel. Austin goes to 5. That and then just passes. Can't spend the last mana.
That is nice that claim is not an if
Yeah.
you do sort of thing.
Dredge of Life from the Loam from Evan Whitehouse. A lot of draws that will get him across the finish line. How about that? Creeping Chill, and Austin immediately picks up the cards. That extra 3 damage is enough. Evan Whitehouse takes game number 3.
I'm glad we took 10 minutes to get that all sorted out.
You know, yeah. But it just shows how scrappy Austin is being here. You know, it's every turn. What? I don't... You got to explain jokes to me, okay?
Oh, there's a card in his deck called Scrap Trawler.
Oh, okay, okay. That's why I said it. But a scrappy finish there for Austin. Despite being on the back foot, finds for a couple of turns just some outside lines to keep him alive. He converts on a couple of them. He's not going to just roll over in those situations.
Yeah, he's been doing a lot to claw out every small percentage in these games, but if we take a step back, I see 2 games, 1 in the play.
Yeah.
And then on the other, and 1 loss on the draw for Evan Whitehouse.
Right, we mentioned that Austin needs to win on the draw. He was a lower seed. He hasn't done that yet. Yes, his deck is even or favored on the draw and is a heavy favorite on the play. But as long as Evan can hold games 1, 3, and 5, he does get the win. And he's done it for game 1, and he's done it for game 3.
Right. Game 4 should be an easy one for Collins, assuming his deck functions, avoiding any nightmare scenarios.
Right.
Game 4 is very much his game to win, but then he's got to figure out a way to break serve. He has not been able to do that yet.
And he's been very close. That game 2 we saw, one of our more one-sided games there. Austin put together the turn 4 win. And even that hand he had in game number 3, it's the kind of hand that, as mentioned before, was very good against control. It had all the pieces. It just didn't have them quickly. Mm-hmm. Tons of baubles and some Clark Clan Ironworks. That should be good.
Yeah.
On the play.
Well, it's just an interesting observation considering what a small percentage of the metagame control is in the modern format. Like, sure, it's good against the 20 Jeskai players in the room.
Yeah. You can lose combo mirrors with that kind of hand especially when you're on the draw.
Right.
There are a lot of decks like, is that hand going to beat Affinity every time? That could be true. It's a harder sell.
I'd have a rough go figuring out how to mulligan with Ironworks, because I would see 3 lands, 4 Ichor Wellsprings, and be like, look at all these redraws.
That 4th one's not a card. The 3rd one's not really a card either.
It's just too tempting.
Look, all you got to do is make an Ironworks on turn 3. Most hands with Ironworks on turn 3 win. That's what that's the target you're shooting for.
Not my style.
And again, and mulligan for Austin. And Evan will join him. You see these in these combo mirrors. A lot of mulliganing tends to go down. Players need to present fast clocks.
Yep. Dredge, pretty great at mulliganing. Ironworks, fine. He has a lot of looks at his namesake card, but it is also a critical mass sort of deck. You do need a lot of artifacts to go off.
Yeah. They're, once you get going, the cards replace themselves and just start creating value. Mm-hmm. If you can make that turn 3 Ironworks, it's usually good.
Right.
This top 4, it has been a bit of an albatross for Austin Collins. He's made it both of the last 2 invitationals. This is, I think, his best shot at the finals.
A bit of an albatross.
Yeah.
That's just a very...
I don't want to say something. I don't want to be too definitive about
common turn of phrase in the year 2018. I'm sure it'll pick up a bit in 2019.
Yeah. It's a good animal. It's a good bird.
Albatross is a nice word. There's at least one magic card that's an albatross.
I believe the card in question is Giant Albatross.
That's the one. Can we get
Creature-Albatross? I'm pretty. Is this old enough that it says Summon Albatross on it?
I'm just itching to find out. Can we get Giant Albatross on screen here?
It's not. It's probably a Creature-Bird, but I Summon Albatross.
Well, Creature-Bird would be very much dependent on when it's printed.
This is an old one. It's not good either.
I'm kind of hoping for Summon Creature.
So, Ryan, I do have to ask, because we are I believe we're in Homelands. Would you like Art 1 or Art 2? See, there's 2 cards that there are 2 different Giant Albatross.
Well, the Albatross is such a common bird that, of course, you would need multiple arts.
All right. So it starts with the word berry, which I think that's a good sign.
All right. This is Giant Albatross 2.
So it's a 1/1 flyer for 2. And if you pay some mana, anything that hurt the Albatross is not only destroyed, but it cannot be regenerated.
Ooh. It's also an activated ability on a 1 toughness creature that checks something else dealing damage to it.
Well, okay, if you don't want the creature that killed the Albatross to be buried, you can pay 2 life. If that's just too steep. So it's not really Death Touch. Okay, it's like...
Well, it also isn't really Death Touch until you modify Albatross's toughness enough or give it indestructible to survive being dealt damage by another creature, right?
No. If your creature destroys Giant Albatross in combat, your creature's going to die unless you pay 2 life. Well, I had to pay my 2 mana. And don't even think about using Healing Salve to stop that 2 life, okay? They've covered that. They are ahead of you.
Cannot be used to counter this loss of life.
No circle, circle of protection blue to stop this. Get out of here. Because, circle protection blue is too good otherwise.
Gotta get a nerf on that one.
All right, we are underway. Evan on a multi-5, Austin on 6. We see Chromatic Sphere into Ichor Wellspring for Collins. It was a Shriekhorn for Whitehouse. Into Narcomoeba, Life from the Loam. Not a bad 2.
That is solid.
Upkeep, he'll go for it again. Already has 1 Dredger. Maybe he can improve to Stinkweed Imp. But how about Creeping Chill? That'll be good for 3 damage.
It's acceptable. Has the Dredge on the Life from the Loam. Haven't gotten a look if he has the second land, but if he's dredging, it's got to be there.
Well, there's the Leyline of the Void and a Damping Sphere.
All right.
That is, we want those ones in the hand and the other ones in the graveyard.
Well, you want the Leyline in the opener. Milling over it is,
at this point,
just some other blank.
Third land into the graveyard, though, off the fetch land means this Life from the Loam from Evan, if he wants to, will get a full 3 cards.
Yep, that's a very easy access to putting a Dredger in the graveyard. I think, barring him having Cathartic Reunion, that would be the play this turn, or the other Damping Sphere.
Yeah, I mentioned those 3 hate cards in the sideboard for Evan Whitehouse. He has 2 copies of Damping Sphere and 1 Leyline of the Void. Neither has made an appearance just yet.
It's just a good, honest split.
the 2-1. And Loam will take back 3 cards. No mana accelerant just yet for Collins. So as it shows right now, he's on pace for a turn 4. If he has the pieces.
No Bloodghast or Amalgam just yet for Whitehouse. He's going to need to get some of that online.
You see a bit of a frown there on Austin's side. He's got some lands, lands Mox Opal, but not much more at the moment. I don't think he has the Corkland Ironworks. What he does have is a Buried Ruin and then an Inventor's Fair. So if he floods out here, he can use Inventor's Fair next turn, which is turn 4, to make a Corkland Ironworks on turn 5. That's pretty slow for him, but Evan's not going very fast himself.
Yeah, he was cooperating mostly with that, though he did just hit Stinkweed Imp off Shriekhorn. His Dredge is fairly medium here, though.
Yeah.
But this is the turn where he will have 3 mana, and he found both Faithless Looting and another Stinkweed Imp here. So the floor for his turn is flashing back Faithless Looting and getting at least 1 Dredge for 5 off of it.
Yeah, so Austin right now, it looks to be a turn 5 win for him. It's very slow. So if Evan can put together a turn 4, he may win the race.
Right, and he still has the Life from the Loam because he hit and dredged the Stinkweed Imp, so he can dredge 8 from here, assuming his hand doesn't offer anything better than that. Now the thing about that is you have to make the land drop first for flashing it back, which means you won't really be getting Bloodghast plus Prized Amalgam online this turn.
Yeah, and if you're looking for the turn 4 win, you'd really like to make sure that happens.
Right. You're still live for Narcomoeba Prized Amalgam.
We see a Shockland and a flashback of Faithless Looting. So first dredge is for 5. It's off Stinkweed Imp.
Looking for chills, conflagrates, combination of Amalga and Narcomoeba.
There we go. Mountain, Prized Amalgam, Arid Mesa, Bloodghast, and Life from the Loam. Well, if he can't get the Bloodghast into play, so the Prized Amalgam is still stuck there for the moment, but he'll have 3 more cards. And there we go. Narcomoeba, Bloodghast, and Conflagrate. Oh my goodness,
wow.
That's a big 3.
That Conflagrate is huge too, because that's going to be able to get Collins into Bloodghast range.
So he gets Amalgam and Narcomoeba both out of the graveyard. So that's an attack for 5. Conflagrate, if he can Conflagrate Austin for 5, let's count it out here. Can he win on the next turn?
From what I'm seeing, I believe so, because he has 5 powers on the battlefield now with the Amalgam.
Okay. Can he if Conflagrate for 6 if he has 2 Bloodghasts?
Yeah.
That would add up.
And he has Life from the Loam, so it's kind of trivial to get the Conflagrate for 6.
Yeah, he has enough mana to do that. Austin needs to find a way to win this turn.
Right.
Now, Inventor's Fair is 1 more for Austin.
That's true.
Which sounds silly, but might be enough.
Whitehouse does have a Stinkweed Imp coming on the dredge, so there could be more Creeping Chills, but there will be a check for that.
Whitehouse threatening to move on to the finals here.
Big draw step for Collins.
All right. Pick up his Mind Stone. That's not going to do it. might have a Nature's Claim, which would keep Austin alive, but it again would mean he couldn't sacrifice Inventor's Fair.
Right.
Which, that was the whole plan. That was how he's going to get the Krark Clan Ironworks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you would need another Mox Opal to pull that off.
He can get one more draw off that Chromatic Sphere. If he wants to do that, he has to be careful, as it will take him off of Metalcraft.
Tough spot.
Yeah, once he's off of Metalcraft, any lines that involve sacrificing Inventor's Fair are gone.
I will say I would definitely take a deal that said I was able to finish exactly 4th in every invitational I played.
The value's there, but that's
You'd like
it's
to
not
win
what you
some
want to
of
be
them.
hearing right now.
You'd like to win some of them. Needs some big redraws here.
Catches himself on the Metalcraft. Here we go. 1 green mana off Mox Opal. Maybe Nature's Claim. So what I like about this is if he gains the life immediately, it stops damage because it becomes very difficult for Evan to give Bloodghast haste.
Yeah, getting out of Bloodghast range is a huge deal.
Chromatic, so he makes a blue off Mox Opal, filters a mana to green on Chromatic Sphere.
Do another Mox Opal, I believe. Doesn't really amount to much given the hand.
Oh, I know, yeah. The fact that his Krark Clan Ironworks is an end-step Inventor's Fair and then another Ironworks, it's hard for him to convert that second Mox Opal meaningfully. Yeah, it feels like he has to Nature's Claim something. He will. It's going to be the Ichor. I think soon the Ichor Wellspring, it might be the Opal, but no, he'll go for the Wellspring. Up to 20, he gets another card draw.
Yeah, he does have another Opal, but because he needs help with his hand, probably just has to be the Wellspring.
Draws another Inventor's Fair. Still no help.
Nope.
And yeah, we'll put the Ichor Wellspring in the graveyard. But he will cast Mind Stone. Makes his land drop for the turn, which is a forest, and passes. Back to Evan we go, but Austin's at 20, so wisely here he's doing what he can to not let Bloodghast have haste.
Right. Whitehouse is hoping to dredge into some Creeping Chills.
Dredges 5, Cathartic Reunion, Ancient Grudge, Faithless Looting, Bloodstained Mire, and Stinkweed Imp. Pretty tame dredge of 5, but it did give him that Ancient Grudge.
Yeah, the Ancient Grudge is not bad here. Collins has been working with a very small amount of material. Doesn't even have Metalcraft next turn for his Inventor's Fair.
Yeah, rather than trying to lay up for next turn, Austin felt there was too much pressure. Instead, he had to try to fish for something that was better, and he did. He took the risk, and it missed.
The gaining the life was kind of forced action.
Right, without that, Conflagrate for 6 is lethal.
Right, and Whitehouse was threatening lethal this turn. Doesn't look like he'll be able to assemble that, just kind of based on mana available. He can't both Flashback, Faithless Looting, and Conflagrate on this turn. He'll only be going up to 4 mana, but fairly easy for him to walk it in over 2 turns.
And having a pretty full grip. He's cast Life from the Loam a couple times this game.
I imagine that this turn, I suppose he could Loam here, but he already has Stinkweed Imp as a big dredger in the graveyard, so it seems to me that he wants to Flashback Faithless Looting, get as much Prized Amalgam and Bloodghast in the graveyard, maybe hit some Creeping Chills along the way,
Leave
and
up
just
Grudge.
leave up Flashback Ancient Grudge.
Yeah. He can't win this turn, so he needs to do what he can to make sure Austin doesn't win on the following turn. He will flash. Looks like Flashback of Faithless Looting is where he starts. Now he's thinking twice because his only green source is a fetch land, and I like this. He wants to bring back the Bloodghasts. He doesn't want to mill over all his green sources.
Yeah, that's definitely a concern. There's 2 Stomping Grounds in the deck.
Right. So and so he's paying a bit of a cost here by getting that second Stomping Ground so that he can be sure to leave up Ancient Grudge. He almost made that, didn't see this, and it was a good catch on Evan's side.
Yeah, there's something that may have cost him. Or
is he out?
So there's the two. Oh wow, there's the two mountains and the second stomping ground already in the graveyard. That.
Oh wow! It missed
him here.
Okay, so that land just wasn't even worth mana. In that situation, do you still like Faithless Looting?
I like it quite a lot less.
Yeah. Do you even do it?
So I gotta. Now I might be more interested in just Life from. No, you can't Life from the Loam and leave up Grudge either because the flashback's green.
Just Conflagrate. Just pitch your hand.
Yeah, so just Conflagrate now is the alternative. So you're coming across for 5, and I believe he has a 6-card hand. You can put Collins to 9, and you have 9 right here. And he does not have Metalcraft, so the Inventor's Fair does not put him to 10.
Okay.
That's probably the line.
Yeah, a bit underwhelming, but fair enough. Here's a swing for 5. Austin drops to 15. Yeah, in this situation, I think Evan we missed the interaction, and that maybe loaming is correct at that point then, and he actually just passes.
I mean, you can still Conflagrate next turn.
Right. 3 mana end step for Austin. He's going to Buried Ruin back something. It's going to be the Ichor Wellspring.
That is
as a thing you can do.
That is not a huge sign of strength.
And while he's tapped down, Evan is going to grudge away the Mind Stone.
All right.
Ooh, I like that.
Well, it's both a Mana Source and the
a
second
redraw?
artifact towards. Yeah, it's a redraw, but also that Mox Opal is quite stranded now.
Yeah. And Austin he's bringing with just 3 lands. He'll cast Ichor Wellspring, draws. Man, he needs help though. Ichor Wellspring again.
Well, the way it's gone down here, really, I think the best thing he can do is find the Nature's Claim for the Wellspring and hope to gain life out of this.
Yeah. I agree. Here's a land drop for Austin. 1 more Wellspring. That'll play. Draws. It's a green card. Is it Stirrings or Claim? It's Ancient Stirrings. They'll cast off Mox Opal, but I don't know what he's hoping to find anymore. Ichor Wellspring, Chromatic Star, Mind Stone, Mox Opal, Scrap Trawler. He'll take the Trawler. But he's at 15. He knows about the Conflagrate in the graveyard. The lethal is on board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically just hoping that Whitehouse doesn't go for it, but I do not believe that he will get that level of error. Ooh, it's Tormod's Crypt.
Okay.
Whitehouse may have needed to have Conflagrated on his last turn.
Right. I mean, it means Austin gets another turn?
It depends when he crypts. If we see Stinkweed Imp. But you can just respond to Creeping Chills, so I don't think you dredge here.
Just draws. He draws Narcomoeba.
I would try to Conflagrate as quickly as possible.
Don't want to give him priority. Okay, so Austin crypts away the graveyard.
Wow.
Did he find himself another turn?
Yeah, Whitehouse. I think he needed to Conflagrate last turn.
Certainly was punished for not doing so. He swings 9, Austin down to 6. Austin has 1 more turn to go. He has Inventor's Fair. He's got some Mox Opal's worth of mana.
If Whitehouse had another Conflagrate in hand, he could cast and flashback immediately. It does not look like that's an option available.
All right. So does Austin have another turn? Looks like he does.
Wow.
Okay.
Whitehouse being punished for those two, that fetch land thing. I don't know if he didn't have another land that produced mana actually.
No, he'd have to loam if he wanted one.
But just kind of played into the Tormod's Crypt.
All right, here's the bonus turn that Austin had earned for himself here. Can he make the most of it? Draws. If you get a Karklan Ironworks on top, we're off to the races. He doesn't just yet.
Well, he has Opal, and he has a redraw and a Chromatic Star.
Right, so he starts the turn with 5 and what's likely 6 mana. Because of that second Opal. He's going to start with Chromatic Sphere. So redraws through Chromatic Sphere, 1 mana floating. Draws into Chromatic Sphere. It's another redraw, but it costs him another one. So right now he has it up to 5. He can have one more redraw, but then he's going to start being too short on mana. And here's the redraw. Can he hit KCI? It's a Terrarian. It's not going to play, and you see it on his face. He knows, and he extends the hand. Evan Whitehouse wins 3-1, and he is on to the finals, defeating Krar Clan Ironworks. It's not what we expected to have happen,